today on Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Good program today as we look at the issue of parenting your young children. And particularly today, we're going to focus on mid-age kids, the adolescent age kids, and look at some of the ways in which parenting should not be done. So unfortunately, we're going to take kind of a negative approach here at the beginning in our first part and talk about some of the things that parents should not do, would be wise not to do. And then we'll shift it over into something a little bit more positive as we move along in the program today. But I want you to just kind of get the idea that there are things that you don't do if you're going to succeed. If you succeed in parenting, if you succeed in any area of life, there are always things that you don't do, as well as then those things that you do. So you always have to look at life from the context of things you don't do and things you do if you're going to succeed. You have to balance those two factors, and you got to identify what they are. What are some of the things you just don't do because they are going to get you off the track? They're going to waylay you. They're going to get you into a whole different pattern of behavior and outcome of life. So think of it in that sense of just things not to do. So we're going to do that today as we focus on our little program today. Now, first of all, remember my program is available, Dr. Teach Me to Parent, online. It's an online education program through Fresno Pacific University. You can sign up as the addresses they're giving you on the screen. And it's the book that I've written, Dr. Teach Me to Parent. And we've taken that book and we've broken it down into units. And the units are now online. It's called Parenting Better. So if you need to take a class, you want to take a class, you're required to take a class, you're court ordered to take a class, here's a class that you may want to consider, Parenting Better. You can do it at your own risk, at your own rate, at your own style, your own timing, whatever. But you can complete it in a period of weeks or a period of months. That's kind of up to you as you undertake a class like that. Now, the other thing is that my book, Dr. Teach Me to Parent, is obviously available online, and you can get that through Amazon, and I would recommend that you get that. If you have a parenting situation, you're trying to become a better parent, you're starting to be a parent, you're in the early stages of parenting, it's like a manual that would be good for you to get a hold of, Dr. Teach Me to Parent, and contact Amazon, and that'd be the best place, to pick that up. You can pick it up on my website, too, www.booksbyhedberg.com, and that's available there. So if you want to pick it up there, that's also available to you. And some of you know that I do a podcast, and maybe you don't know I do a podcast, but I do a podcast about 3 times a week, and it's called The Psychology Report. And there I deal with issues of psychology as it relates to human behavior and relates to daily living, and all areas of life. I often do a very timely section on the psychology of politics as part of that program. So you may want to pick that up, and you can pick that up by www.thepsychologyreport.buzzsprout.com. And I welcome you to become part of my audience through the Psychology Report. So pick that up if you will. I think it'd be good educational background for you if you're interested in psychology in any form and want to just learn a little bit more how psychology interacts in our human behavior and in our daily living. So I'll welcome you to become part of that audience. Okay, now what I'd like to do is to start this out with a little bit of a quote, as I usually do, but today I'm going to turn to a rule. I'm going to call this Grandma's Rule. And Grandma has a rule for life. Grandma has a rule for behavior. Grandma has a rule for her grandkids. And Grandma's rule is applied in a lot of different situations. A lot of people enjoy it. It applies not to just grandkids, but to all of us. And it's like priority thinking. It's like priority behavior. Here's what Grandma says. First you eat your meal, then you can have your dessert. Okay? That's Grandma's rule. And Grandma says there are certain things that are important to do first. And then you do the things that are enjoyable. So you ate your meal, that's important. Then the enjoyable part is the dessert. You have that later. But you first have to eat your meal to get your dessert. It's kind of like buying dessert by eating your meal. But if you apply that concept to all areas of life, do the things that are tough, and then do the things that are enjoyable. Do the things that are important, and then do the things that are enjoyable and fun and entertaining or relaxing. Do the things that are on your to-do list. Do the things that need to be done today. Do those first, and then do the things that you enjoy and you would able to do in more of a relaxing kind of a manner. Apply Grandma's rule in your life. Apply Grandma's rule in all areas of your life. Take the things that are vital, important, necessary, essential. Get them done first. Do them first thing in the day. Do them first thing in the morning. And then you enjoy fun. Then you enjoy relaxation. Then you enjoy the spirit of exercise or activity of any kind that you would want to do. Then you have your fun. Then you have your enjoyment. So that's Grandma's rule. And Grandma's always right, you know. Grandma's always has the way to think things through and to give us wise advice. So that's Grandma's rule, and it's there for your edification, so to speak. Okay? Now, the other day in my other program, I have a program entitled Boys to Men. And that program is on Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And what that is a program designed to help fathers raise boys so they become men. And we have fun in that program because it's a lot of ways in which fathers can interact with their boys, but in a manner that will raise boys up to become men. So in that program, I read a piece of poetry last week. And I want to redo it today. In case you missed it and didn't pick it up, I want you to pick it up now today because I think it's a piece of poetry that's extremely important for all of us. And it not just applies to boys, but it probably applies to all of us. We have girls in our family or boys, but it's called Cats in the Cradle. Now, maybe you've heard that piece of poetry. Maybe you haven't. Harry Chapin wrote this piece of poetry and 1974 and became very well known and became very famous for this piece of poetry. Unfortunately, in 1981, Harry Chapin was in a serious automobile accident and died as a result of that accident, leaving behind a wife and 5 children. 3 of those children were from a previous marriage of the wife, and then 2 of the children were of their own. So they had 5 children. He was 38 at that time in his life when he was killed and left us and left his family with a great void. But one of the things that he left behind for all of us is this piece of poetry, Cats in the Cradle. And I think it's an important piece of poetry. I think it's an important lyric that he put to music. And I'm not going to sing it for you. I'm just going to give you the lyrics. But it's a very important piece of music because it tells a story about a father and his son. But it's a negative story. It's a sad story in a way because it's what a father and a son should not experience together. This is not to be recommended. This is not to be the way that we live life as a father and a son. But unfortunately, it's very true and very common in many, many families. Here's the piece of poetry that Harry Chapin wrote. My child arrived just the other day. He came to the world in the usual way, but there were planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away. And he was talking, for I knew it. And as he grew, he'd say, I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know, I'm going to be like you. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon and little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you coming home, Dad? I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know, we'll have a good time then. My son turned 10 just the other day. He said, thanks for the ball, Dad. Come on, let's play. You can teach me to throw." I said, "Not today. I've got a lot to do." And he said, "Well, that's okay." And he walked away. But his smile never dimmed and said, "I'm going to be like him, yeah. I know I'm going to be like him." And the Cat's in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon. Little Boy Blue and the Man in the Moon. When you coming home, Dad? I don't know when. But we'll get together then, you know. We'll have a good time then. Well, he came home from college just the other day, so much like a man. I just had to say, "Son, I'm proud of you. Can you sit for a while?" He shook his head and he said with a smile, "What I'd really like, Dad, is to borrow the car keys. See you later. Can I have them, please?" The Cat's in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon. Little Boy Blue and the Man in the Moon. When you coming home? Son, I don't know when, but we'll get together then, Dad. You know, we'll have a good time then. And then Harry Chapman ends his little piece of poetry with his last paragraph. He says this: "I've long since retired. My son's moved away. I called him up just the other day. I said, I'd like to see you, if you don't mind. He said, I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time. You see, my new job's a hassle, and the kids got the flu. But it's sure nice talking to you, Dad. It's been sure nice talking to you." And as I hung up the phone, it occurred to me, he's grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. And the Cat's in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon. Little Boy Blue and the Man in the Moon. When you coming home, son? I don't know when, but we'll get together then, Dad. We're going to have a good time then. You see, that is a sad piece of poetry, isn't it? It's sad in the sense that a father created a story, created a scenario, created a lifestyle, created a pattern of living, pattern of life that put off things that were important. The most important thing that you can have in life and that you should not put off, but he did, and that is time with your kids, time with your son, time with any of your children, time with your wife, time with the people that are important to you. You say they're important to you in your life, but you put off being with them, spending time with them, responding to them, meeting their needs, being active with them, being part of their life, being part of their life story. You see, we can put off and way into the future, thinking that sometime in the future we're going to catch up and we're going to do all this wonderful thing that we should have been doing all along the way. But sometimes it becomes too late. Sometimes it becomes impossible. In the case of Harry Chapman, he never did get to that point where he could spend time with his kids because he died as a young man at age 38. You see, we don't know what our future is going to be. We don't know how we're going to end our life. We don't know how our life is going to tell its full story. But when you have that opportunity, when you have the chance, Dad, Mom, grandparent, when you have that chance, take it. Be with your kids. Be with your children. Be with your grandchildren. Spend time with them. Because there may be a day when you won't have that time. Maybe there will be a time when that time will just pass and you will have missed the entire experience of growing up with your kids. They teach you. You teach them. You have things to learn from them. They have things to learn from you. That takes place in the togetherness that you have between child and parent. It's the togetherness is the moment of teaching, is the place of teaching. It's the place of learning. See, as a parent, you are a teacher. As a parent, you're a storyteller. As a parent, you're a companion. As a parent, you're the playmate. You see, Harry Chapman said all that in his piece of poetry. He passed up opportunities to be the playmate. He passed up opportunities to be the teacher of the kid. He passed up opportunities to be the companion because he had planes to catch and things to do. Well, the days go by and you miss that opportunity, and it's a sad day. In this case, it was sad for 5 children who didn't have the opportunity to catch up with their dad and be part of his life. So I give that piece of poetry to you. I honor the 5 children of Harry Chapman through reading this piece of poetry. And I bring it to your attention because I don't want you to follow that pattern. I don't want you to walk that lifestyle. I don't want you to have that experience. I don't want you to regret that you didn't take time for your kids and you missed that opportunity. I don't want that for you. So I bring this to your attention and say, don't live like that. Live fully. Live together. Live bonded. Live part of their life. Be part of their life. And let them be part of your life. That's the sharing experience that you want to have, with your children. Well, I want to move on to another topic that is also negative. And we learn sometimes from the negative. We learn sometimes from looking at it upside down. So I'm going to turn now to what I call the 10 cannots. And parents need to change these areas of things that you cannot do, you should not do, must not do. If you're going to be a parent, if you're going to be a good parent, and you want to raise a good child, there are certain things that you don't do. There are certain things you do, but there are certain things that you don't do. And I want to focus on those today. I want to give you kind of a list of some of the things that we don't do as parents if we want our kids to become good kids and we want to be identified as a good parent. So what are some of the things that we don't do, should not do, must not do as a parent? Well, here's the first one. Parents cannot teach a child to apologize if they themselves do not apologize. Isn't that profound? You can't teach your child the lessons of apology. You can't give them the script of how to apologize. You can't read it to them and they memorize it so that in their life in the future, they apologize for things they have done or things they have not done, things they should have done and didn't do. See, what's important here is that you give them the example of apology. You give them the model. You give them the opportunity to observe you apologizing. And from that, they learn to apologize. They learn the words of apology, and they learn the emotions of apology, and they learn the context of apology. Parents teach children to apologize by they themselves apologizing and being an example and being a model to their kids. So there you are, Mom, Dad, step it up. There are days that you need to apologize for things you've done, things you have not done, things that you overdone, things you overstated, things you overreacted, you compromised maybe in some way, who knows. But you did something that you shouldn't have done. Apology is called for. But it's not just to resolve that issue, but it's the teaching of apologizing to your kids by you apologizing. That's the important key to get a hold of. You're doing it for 2 reasons. One is to resolve an issue, and the other one is to teach the mechanism, teach the manner of apology. Okay, here's number 2, okay? Parents cannot teach responsible and controlled drinking when they themselves drink irresponsibly. You see, we have a lot of research that says, that if you drink responsibly in your home, your children will drink responsibly in their adult life. Well, that isn't necessarily true, by the way. It's true to a large extent, but it's not totally true. You can't necessarily count on that. It takes more than that, if you will, to teach a child to drink alcohol responsibly. But you got to start. It starts with you. And you have to be the person who consumes alcohol in a responsible manner. Or don't consume it at all. That's also responsible, by the way. But be responsible in your controlled drinking, your moderate drinking, as an example, so that you teach your children to do likewise. You see, if you don't drink responsibly, your children are probably not going to drink responsibly. You know, the pattern is all too common. Dad's an alcoholic. Dad drinks way, way, way too much. And then the kids grow up and they do the very same thing. And you scratch your head as a therapist. You say, why in the world would you go down that path of behavior and drink irresponsibly when you saw your father drink irresponsibly and ruin his life and ruin the life of his family and ruin your life as a child? Why would you do that? We don't know the answer to that question, by the way. But kids often do. They follow the drinking pattern of their parents. So dad, mom, you can't teach responsible drinking if you yourself drink irresponsibly. Okay, that's number 2. Here's the third point. And again, I'm focusing on the negative. Parents cannot teach their children to respect others and be loyal when they mistreat each other as spouses and are not loyal to each other as spouses. You see, Dad and Mom, if you're disloyal to each other, if you're disloyal to your children, if you don't respect each other, and if you don't respect your children cannot learn the lesson of respect. Your children cannot learn how to respect other people because children are going to follow your pattern of how you treated each other, how you treated your friends, how you treated people outside the family. And if you treat people with disrespect, you can be pretty well assured that your children are going to disrespect other people and treat them in a disrespectful manner. You see, you cannot teach your children to respect other people, which is what we want to do. We want our children to be respectful towards others. We want them to be loyal to their friends. We want them to be loyal to their spouse. We want them to be loyal to their children. We want them to be. We want that. But they won't learn that behavior if you mistreat each other as parents and if you mistreat them as parents. So as a spouse and as a parent, you have to treat each other with great deal of respect if you're going to teach your children to treat other people with respect and treat their spouses and their family later on in life with a high level of respect. So you're the model, you're the example parent in the area of respect. Okay, here's the fourth point. Parents cannot teach generosity and they cannot teach charity if they themselves are not generous with their money, with their possessions, and with their time. You see, parent, we would want to teach our children to be generous with others, to give clothes down like hand-me-downs, or to share some of their toys, or to share some of their possessions that are extra, or to share money if they have that, or to buy something for somebody else as a gesture of goodwill and kindness and friendship. We want that. We want to teach our children to be generous and to share their things with other kids, their friends and their siblings. We want them to do that. But you know, you have to do it yourself first. You have to teach charity by being charitable. You have to teach generosity by being generous, you see? You have to be generous with your time. Then they'll be generous with their time. You have to be generous with your money. Then they will be. Are you giving money to a nonprofit organization? Are you giving money to people who are in need? Are you giving possessions to the Salvation Army or to the Fresno Rescue Mission or any of the other charitable operations in our community that take in goods and resell them? There are many. Are you doing that? Are you doing it with your children? Are you teaching them to go through their clothes that they don't need anymore, but they're still good, and give them to somebody else? That's being generous, you see, rather than just throw them away. Giving some of the toys that they don't need anymore and don't play with anymore, but are still good, and give them to somebody else that can benefit, from them. To take some of that money that they make in a part-time job or they've gotten for Christmas or they've gotten for a birthday and give 10% of it away to somebody else that might need that, a homeless person or a person who is in need of some finances in the neighborhood or whatever it might be. Share your money, share your toys, share your clothing, share your possessions with others. And mom and dad, you do it first. You do it as an example. And then you involve your kids in doing it with you. And then they will do it themselves as they become an adult. You can be sure of that. You see, if you don't do that, if you don't share your stuff, if you don't exercise generosity, your kids are not going to either. So set the example, mom, dad. Set the pattern. Encourage your kids not only to do it by you doing it, but let them see how much better you feel and how much better they feel when you give away your prize possessions to somebody that can benefit from those possessions. Okay? Now, let me move on to another point. Parents cannot help their kids learn independence and self-reliance if they do for them what they should and could do for themselves. Okay, that's a big mouthful, but it's a very simple story. It's a very simple lesson. If you do for your kids what they could do for themselves, you're not teaching responsible behavior, self-responsible behavior, independent behavior, self-reliant behavior. You're not teaching that. The more you do for a kid, the more you're teaching dependence on you. The more you do for your child, the more you're teaching that child to be dependent upon the government. The more that you do for your kid, the more that you're teaching your child to look to somebody else to provide something that they want or to do something for them that they really could and should do for themselves. You teach independence. You teach self-reliance by helping a child do for themselves what they can and should do. Sure, you can help them. There's a role in that, of just helping your kid, but not doing it for them. You don't make the bed for your kid. You don't clean the room of your kid. You don't do the laundry for your kid. They do it with you. You do it with them. And then you fade out as your child learns those behaviors and those tasks, and then they do it themselves. You see, mom and dad, you're the teacher of independent behavior. You're a teacher of self-reliance. You are not the one to do things for them so they depend on you and become self-reliant on you. You want them to become self-reliant on themselves and independent and do for themselves what they can and could do and should do. So there you are, mom, dad, be careful. It's easy to just do it yourself because we know good and well as parents, it goes faster and easier when you just do it yourself. It drags out when you wait for your kid to do it. Well, there's still a reason to let it drag out and let your kid do it because he's got to learn to take care of himself. He's got to learn to provide for himself. He has to learn to upgrade himself, to take care of his things, to take care of his clothing, to look good. He's got to do those things for himself. And that's where self-reliance comes in. That's where independence comes in. And you are the teacher of that. You have to provide for that. You're the person that makes that happen. Okay? Now, let me move to another one. These are the cannots now. These are the things you cannot do as a parent, okay? Parents cannot teach their kids the ideal of the brotherhood of man if they speak harshly and derogatorily against another race, group of people, or speak of some kind of class hatred. That's a very important issue, especially in today's world where we're trying to break down the barriers between races. We're trying to break down the animosity and the ill feelings and the hurts that have occurred over history between people of different races and backgrounds and different creeds and different religions and different ways of life, if you will. We're trying to break that down. We're trying to come together. We're trying to unify. We're not trying to divide. We're trying to unify. And parents, if you talk negatively about another person, another race of people, another class of people, another group of people in some identified form, no matter what it is, if you speak derogatorily about them, you are teaching your child to speak derogatorily and feel derogatorily against them as well. You can't teach your kids what we call the brotherhood of man. That is the unity of man, the coming together of man, the togetherness of man, the unity of man. You can't teach that if you separate out people by class, by groups, by color, or by creed, or whatever it might be. If you separate them out and say one is different than the other, one is better than the other, one is greater than the other, or whatever, if you do that, you never will teach the brotherhood of man. Because the brotherhood of man is where we come together, where we unify, and we share common goals, we share common values, we share common objectives, we share common dreams, if you will, and we help each other achieve those dreams. We work together. E pluribus unum. It's on your coin. It's the motto of America. From many countries and from many backgrounds and from many organizations and from many colors and from many creeds and from many directions of life, e pluribus unum. We come together and we are one. That's the most powerful statement that we can live under if we're going to bring together people, because it's the brotherhood of man. It's where we come together as brothers, and we come together as a brotherhood. That means a group, a unified group of people that share common values and share common goals and common dreams and achieve together, one helping the other achieve. That's the brotherhood of man. So Dad and Mom, you cannot teach your kids the brotherhood of man if you speak harshly and if you speak derogatorily against another race of people, another class of people, another group of people, however you identify them. Be part of the brotherhood of man, and your kids will be. Speak upward. Include in your friendships people of various backgrounds. Bring them into your home. Have dinner with them. Have meals with them. Have social events with them. Play games with them. Bring together your kids and kids in your neighborhood that come from a different background and bring them together, because that's how we're going to achieve the brotherhood of man. Not by separating, not by calling one group of people one name and another group of people with a different name, or identifying them by color or whatever it is in the background. What's important here is that you come together as one, and we all help each other achieve a common dream, a common goal, and that is achievement or success or accomplishment. It's up to you, Dad. It's up to you, Mom. The brotherhood of man. Advance it, embrace it, encourage it, teach it, live it, spread it. Okay? Now, here's another point. We're getting to the end here now, but here's another point for you. Parents cannot teach their kids prosperity if they do not practice thrift and do not have judicious spending habits. Very, very important concept here. You can't teach your kids to earn money, save money, and accumulate money to be prosperous if you yourself misspend, if you yourself overspend. You see, what's important here is that you have a judicious spending plan or habit. Your money reaches all month long. Your allowance reaches all week long. You don't spend that the first day, the first week, the first part of time. You spread out. You judiciously spend a little bit throughout the week or throughout the month or throughout the pay period so that you have enough money to spread and to last. That's being judicious. And to buy things that are moderate and buy things that are within your ability to pay. Your ability to pay quickly or soon. That's judicious. It's choosing something that's moderate rather than something that's cheap or something that's expensive. Something you can afford. That's judicious spend. Mom and dad, practice that behavior. Practice it in front of your children. Teach it to your children so that they will have a life of judicious spending themselves and be able to experience prosperity in their life as you do in your life. You have to be prosperous. But it isn't just the accumulation of money that makes us prosperous. It's the way that we manage our money. That's what makes us prosperous. Okay, here's another point. And very, very important issue for you to end with today. Parents cannot teach their children to live by faith and biblical teaching if they do not live a life of faith and biblical teaching themselves. You see, even in religious matters, children will do as you do. Children will follow your teaching. Children will follow your lifestyle. Children will follow your patterns of behavior. Children will follow your way of worshiping God or praying or reading the Bible or thinking in religious terms or drawing upon religious concepts and guiding our life accordingly and developing our life around patterns of religious teaching. If you do it, Mom, if you do it, Dad, if you do it, parents together, your kids will. But if you don't, your kids won't. You see, the pattern of living is there. The pattern of modeling and the pattern of example is there. You be the example, and your kids will follow definitely. Okay? Now, we're going to take a break here. And I have one little message for us, and that is, when we come back, how do you raise a juvenile delinquent? Talk about negatives, okay? This is another negative for us. How do you raise a juvenile delinquent? I'm going to give you the formula. If you want to raise a juvenile delinquent, there's a way to do it. If you don't want, well, we got to stay away from certain kind of behaviors. So we're going to look at that now when we come back from our break. See you in a moment.
The in-house services we offer here are Total Life Change, anger management, one-on-one biblical counseling. We do a marriage enrichment, codependency and chemical dependency one-on-one counseling. We have a relapse prevention piece. We also do a lot of workshops where we inform and educate people on different topics. There is one-on-one individual sessions, and we also have group therapy that we work in a group. We find that can be so advantageous when you know you're not alone. The key is to call, email, online, and get a hold of one of the receptionists here, and we will do an assessment. We are not here to direct, guide, and force. We're here to meet you where you're at, then direct, then guide, and then give you options to break free.
dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com.
Try to close the car.
Tanya, come here.
At Boys and Girls Clubs, it's not just about trying new things.
Kitchen in my hometown.
It's not about learning the right steps
4,
or making contact.
5, 6, 7, 8.
It's not about exploring the future. It's about helping them build it. It's about taking steps to greatness. About making a connection. It's about proving every kid and teen has what it takes. It's about people in our clubs who bring out the greatness in every kid who enters our doors. It's not just about being on stage. It's about walking across it. Great futures start here, and here, and here.
Sat7 is a Christian media network that uses uncensored satellite television to broadcast across the Middle East and North Africa, and is also available globally online.
All right, welcome back to Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Our program today is a little bit negative, but let me justify it for you. If you're going to achieve, you're going to be a good parent, you're going to be a successful parent, there are certain things you don't do. There are certain things you avoid. There are certain things that you just eliminate from your life. You eliminate from your home. You eliminate from your lifestyle. You eliminate from your behavior patterns. You eliminate from relationships. There are things that are better not to do if you're going to be a successful and achieving parent. But likewise, there are certain things to do. And we need to know the difference. So today I'm focusing on some of the things that parents should not do in their process and in their desire to become a good parent. So we've been talking about different ways in which fathers and mothers can parent, should parent, if we're going to bring up a kid to be responsible and to be fully achieving. So what I'm going to do now is just turn to a set of rules, if you will, that if you want to raise a kid that's a juvenile delinquent, you want to raise a kid that's going to go to prison, you want to raise a kid that's going to be in juvenile hall, there are certain things to do. And there are certain things not to do. But you got to make that decision, you see. Now, let me just add one little point here. I didn't mean to say this, but I will. 70% of the children and the young adults and the men in prison today, and women in prison today, come from homes where father is absent. Father is not home. Father has left the home. Father's been kicked out of the home. Mother won't let the father in the home. Mother won't let the father into the life of the child for whatever reason. Some legitimate, some not. But people end up in prison today when they are raised in a home that is fatherless. So start with that. Get together. Be parents to your kid. Whether you're in the same home together or you are in separate homes, but you're raising the kid in what we call a co-parenting manner. Do that and be that. Co-parent. Involve the father, involve the mother. If you're in the same home, fine, good. But if you're not in the same home, you live separately, you can still co-parent your kid and be part of their life equally. Be that, okay? Equally. Listen to that. Okay, now, what are some of the rules for raising a juvenile delinquent? Let me go to my book, Deep Roots. A book that just came out. It's available on Amazon called Deep Roots. You can get it on Amazon. And in there are multi-lessons of life for us to learn and to live our life by. And I'm picking one today. That's the 10 rules for raising a juvenile delinquent. It comes right out of this book and comes out of history. So what are they? Well, let me give you just the brief word. Give him all he wants. give him all he wants. But here's really what the rule says. Begin in infancy to give the child everything he wants. He will then grow up to believe the world owes him a living. That's really what the message is. Give him everything he wants, and he'll expect what he wants from everybody else. The world will owe him a living. That's a juvenile delinquent in the making. When he thinks that everybody else out there needs to be my servant, needs to give me what I want, and if they don't give it to me, I'll take it. We call that stealing. Okay? That's raising a juvenile delinquent. Here's the second point. Let him speak as he wants and as he hears others speak. That's the short word. But here's really what the rule says. When he picks up bad words and dirty words, laugh at him. That will make him think he's cute. You see, all around us, around every kid, there's languages that are spoken that are just not to be repeated, or not to be learned, or not to be acquired. We call those cuss words. Those are the four-letter words of our language, you see. But if you let the kid learn those words and then reiterate those words and speak those words and use those words in his vocabulary and then laugh at him and use those words yourself as a parent, that's another step towards raising a kid who will become a juvenile delinquent. Juvenile delinquents use cuss words. Their language is peppered with cuss words. It's just part of their life, part of their lifestyle. Don't celebrate cuss words, okay? If you do, you're raising a kid to become a juvenile delinquent. Here's number 3. Hold back spiritual teaching until he's an adult. Here's what the rule says. Never give him spiritual teaching until he's 21, and then let him decide for himself. And that's what a lot of parents do. When you're older, you can decide for yourself whether you want to have a religion or not, or whatever religion you want, you can choose then. The rule goes on to say this, by the same logic, never teach him the English language. Maybe when he's 21 or older, he'll want to speak Bantu. Well, why would you do that as a parent? Why would you want that as a parent? Why would you want to give your kid an opportunity to learn something as a child and then deny him that opportunity? And then say, well, you can do that when you're older. You can do that when you want to. You can do that when you are in college. Or you can do that when you're married or whatever. No. Build into a child's life the values of faith and religion. Put it in there so that it's there. It's anchored in there. Otherwise, you're teaching your child to be a juvenile delinquent. Okay, here's the next point. Brag openly about how much smarter your child is than others. And here's what the rule says. In the presence of all the neighbors, show how much smarter your child is than the neighbor's children. You see, if your child hears that, if your child grows up with you bragging about how wonderful he is, and he's how much better than anybody else in the neighborhood, anybody at school, anybody in his classroom, he's going to get an overestimation of himself, and he's going to think he can do anything. He can think he's going to have all the power of the world, and everybody has to bow to him. That's the making of a juvenile delinquent, to think that way. To think that you're better than everybody else, or that what they have is yours, and what they have you want and you can take. That's a juvenile delinquent form of thinking. Here's the next point. Avoid the use of words such as wrong and no. Here's what the rule says. Avoid the use of the word wrong or no. It may develop a child into having a guilt complex. This will prepare him to believe that when he is punished later on for stealing or assaulting somebody, society is against him and that he is being persecuted. You see, the point is this. There is a wrong. There are times when you say no to your child. If your child never lives with the word no, that means he can do anything he wants. He can take anything he wants. He can have anything he wants. He can take anything he wants from anybody else. Or if he doesn't know the word wrong, he's going to think that everything is his. Anything he wants is his. You see, the word wrong, that's not right. The word is no, you can't do that, you shall not do that. Those are what we call the guardrails of morality, the guardrails of living. There are things that we do within the guardrails, but there are things that we do not do because they're outside of the guardrails of morality. So teach the word wrong. There are things which are wrong. We don't do those things. And there are times and there are situations and there are things that we do not do. The word is no. We don't do those things. Mom and Dad, practice those words and be able to say those words. Okay? Now, here's another point. Pick up his things and do everything for him. Here's what the rule says. Pick up everything after him, his shoes, his books, his clothes. Do everything for him so that he will be experienced in throwing away his burdens onto others. You see, if you pick up everything for your kid, if you clean up his room, you pick up all his toys, you pick up all his clothes, you put everything away, you put all of his dishes away, you're teaching him to wait upon others. You're teaching him to let others do his stuff, his things. And he becomes then dependent upon other people. And if other people will do the same thing, he has a great life. But if other people don't do what you do as a parent, he's going to get mad, he's going to get angry, and he's going to fight back. And he's going to be violent. He'll be aggressive. And that will get him into trouble. That's juvenile delinquency. See, juvenile delinquency is forcing your way upon others because you want your way, because you're used to having your way with your own parents. They taught you that, to give you everything you wanted, and to expect that from everybody else. But you know, everybody else doesn't give you what you want. So if you force your way, that's learning how to be a juvenile delinquent. Here's another point. Give him all the money he needs and he wants. Well, if you give him all the spending money he wants, he'll never learn to earn his own. He'll never learn to earn his own. You see, we don't give. You can supplement. You can do half. With our kids, we often did that. If you want something, we'll pay half, you pay half. They saved up their half, and then they got what they wanted. You see, you don't give the kid just what he wants, thinking that that's going to be the answer. Okay? Let me move along. Satisfy all of his cravings and wants without limits. You see, if you're going to have everything he wants, you're going to satisfy his desires, his wants, he's going to expect that from the world. He's going to turn to the government and say, I want this, I want that, I want this, and live on welfare. Satisfy his cravings and wants without limits will teach him to be that dependent person and a delinquent. Here's another one. Take his side against teachers. Take his side against the police. Take his side against the neighbors. He'll begin to believe that he's always right and he'll always be protected. And somebody will always come to his defense and always bail him out. And he'll expect that. That's juvenile delinquency. And then the last point is, when he gets in trouble, just say this: I could never do anything with him. In other words, he was helpless. He was hopeless. I was helpless. We couldn't do anything at all. That's your way out. That's your excuse, so to speak. But all along the way, you could have done things differently. All along the way, you could have taught a child to be responsible, not a delinquent. Well, that's for today. Great lessons on what not to do as a parent, how not to be a parent and raise a kid that's a good kid. Hey, we opened the program with Grandma's Rule. We're going to close it with Grandpa's Rule. You know what Grandpa's Rule is? It's a funny one. Get up, or to get the most out of the day, get up early and stay up late. In other words, you're going to have a full day if you get up early and you stay up late. You're going to have a shortened day if you sleep in. So Grandpa says, get up early, start your day, do a lot, get a lot accomplished, stay up late, work the whole day, work until the evening, work until you go to bed, and you'll have a satisfied feeling that your day was a successful day. Hey, thanks for joining me today. And we'll see you next week, and Dr. Teach Me to Parent. See you then. Bye for now.
set foot on the campus to come visit it, I was struck by how open and how welcoming the students and the professors were. Coming to Gordon was like coming home.
I think intentional community is what Jesus modeled with his disciples, and Gordon has really fostered a good place for intentional community to happen.
Gordon is a place where you can meet people from all over the world and hear their stories. I meet a lot of different people who are shaping who I am today.
Gordon seeks to graduate men and women of character and of leadership, and the world is the place where Gordon students belong.
Choosing to go to Gordon was, I think, one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I expect to be changed.